In a world full of distractions, there is one big question on every dog owner's lips.
How do I become more than just the person holding the other end of the leash?
We all get dogs with a dream in mind, a vision of the future. And if right now your everyday reality isn't quite that picture you had in mind, you are in the right place.
It really doesn't have to be this way.
You absolutely can and will be more to your dog than just the person who gets in between them and the world.
The key is you need to be more sexy.
More sexy than the neighbourhood cat.
More sexy than the jogger in the park.
More sexy than that half-eaten hamburger they just found on the floor.
And yes, even more sexy than the dog across the road.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Lauren.
Together we're Absolute Dogs.
And you're listening to the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast, the podcast that teaches you how to transform your dog owning struggles.
Now we've got some foodie questions from you. We love it when you email us and you give us questions and you ask us to cover things on your podcast, because remember, this is your podcast. This is your podcast, dog owners, dog lovers, dog peoples all over the world. So questions are, and I think these can kind of all amalgamate really, my dog doesn't like food, help.
Right.
And my dog will only eat certain food, help. And then my dog actually has, I suppose, a level of struggles with food drive. What are your tips? So basically, all of our questions revolve around
Foodiness.
being a bit foodie.
Yeah.
Or not.
Yeah. So, what can we do about it? Well, first things first is observe your dogs. So, observe what they like to do in the world. Like, often their behavior struggles give clues as to their behavior transformation. And so if your dog loves to chase, or if your dog loves to catch flies, or if your dog loves to dig, or if your dog loves to sniff, these are all little clues about how you might be able to almost use that to your advantage in the way that you deliver food. So for example, one of my dogs, Casino, if there is a fly, she loves to try and catch the fly, right? She will be like, where is the fly? I want to catch him. Now, it's no surprise that she loves to catch food, yeah? And if I'm really wanting to reward her for a really great choice, I can toss food up in the air and she snaps at it and grabs it. And that's through observation. Equally, another one of my dogs, let's go for Illy, or Ketone, for example, both very similar in this respect. They like to have a good sniff, but specifically not just sniffing, it's almost like hunting. If they have an opportunity to use their nose to hunt something down, they're all over it. Now, the cool thing is if I restrain them, throw a piece of food into some grass and release them to it, the energy that they approach that task, again, they don't really care about the taste of the food when they get there. What they love is that experience, and it's through observation that you can find your dog's favorite experiences.
I would also say that from the dogs that we see and we train, and obviously this might be just happens to be the dogs that we see and we train, a lot of dogs are fed a little bit too much. Yeah. A lot of dogs are overfed. A lot of dogs are fed by the packet or by what the brand says on the back of it. And when I'm working with food with my dogs, and those of you that are listening can't see this, but I've got some things that are very calorific and high calorie, and then I've got some things that are a bit lower calorie, and I've got things that deliver a lot in a small sort of, I was thinking of one of the kibbles that I sometimes use is, I won't say the brand, but it's very, very dense versus some that are very, very light. You can feel it. Yeah. So you can get away with more or less depending on what you're feeding. I think some people feed a lot, and I don't mean a lot, I mean a lot, like a big amount, and they just almost too much.
And sometimes it's maybe that you've got a little bit attached to a certain type of food because it's your dog's absolute favorite. But I bet what you've discovered is that potentially the more you use it, the less it becomes their favorite. Because one thing that dogs love is variety, and they love things a lot if they're very scarce, if they don't happen very often. And so the first day you train them with cheese, it's like, oh my God, they're on fire. 2 weeks later, they're like, cheese? Yeah, no, I'm
not interested.
Going to be over here, thanks. And so being aware that we've almost got to grow lots of different foods and have variety in what we're using, because for those types of dogs that are not particularly naturally foodie, no single food is going to be like the saviour forever.
And equally, try not to pander to it too much. Like, you know what I would say is, if they're really not up for it, let's not train that day. Let's do something different. Let's maybe play and do other things. But actually, I still wouldn't then put a full food bowl down. I personally would wait till later that evening and I would try something different then. Personally, I think that so many dogs are indulged that little bit too much just because we might feel guilty that they haven't had their whole amount. Dogs are actually very good on the whole. Well, some dogs are very good at self-regulating. Others will eat until they pop.
Yeah.
But some dogs will do that, right? They'll just self-regulate. So I think to be aware of that with the dogs that aren't foodie, that actually just strip it back a little bit to get
They might not need much, and therefore we need to be really targeted about what we use.
Let's think bet versus, say, ketone or blink, because I would say ketone and blink can almost eat double what a dog like bet or brave can eat.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we need to be sure that we're using that food in the right way. Now, another thing that I often encounter, and it's one important one to consider, is you might find that your dog's not particularly foodie in the morning, but they get more foodie throughout the day. That's probably a sign of, actually, let's pick my battles. I'm not going to train the important stuff in the morning. I might train the really important stuff in the afternoon or the evening. And, you know, why might that be? Well, it's a little bit like if you've just opened your eyes on a morning and I stick a roast dinner in front of you, some of you will be screaming now saying, yes, I'm there, and others among you will be like, oh my goodness, that's made me feel sick.
I don't know about you, Tom, but I'm really not a massive morning eater.
No.
Unless I'm away and there's sort of like croissants or a nice sort of pancake, sort of waffly style, like American breakfast or something like that, maybe in like an 11 sort of time, but I'm not, and it's when I'm out of routine.
And I don't know if you have this, but if I get up at 4 a.m, I'm absolutely starving, right? If I get up at like any time after 5:30, can't eat until about 11.
Yeah, that's
right?
my normal.
And we've got to realise that our dogs are probably the same, but we're not just saying, hey, eat something. We're saying, hey, do all of this stuff and get fed. And they're like, no, thanks, right?
And I think we've got to be okay with, actually, some dogs train better at sometimes than others. And I think we've also got to be okay with sometimes they are not hungry, and that is cool. In fact, be grateful that you've got a dog that self-regulates, not like some of ours who literally will just balloon. I remember one dog literally getting her head in a food barrel, this is years and years ago, and she actually turned the size of the barrel. Like the whole of her just went round, and she went her head shape.
Someone once brought a puppy in as an emergency to me at the vet clinic because the puppy had got into a bag of food, and I mean it wasn't funny, but it kind of was, because this puppy, you know how puppies don't have much inside them really, you can kind of feel everything, but you touch the puppy's abdomen and you could hear the kibble crunching together.
Oh no.
The abdomen was just full of dry kibble, it hadn't even chewed. The puppy was absolutely fine, but you know, you've got to kind of get a feel for what your dog's like.
And
right?
I think know the individual there with foodness. Another one for me with food, just like Tom said, is variety. So try some home baked treats, look at our food badge, have a look at the sorts of things we do on a day-to-day basis. We try different proteins. We use, in fact, let's head over to the freezer very quickly. But we've got a whole set of, we've got lamb, we've got beef, we've got venison, we've got chicken, we've got sprats, we've got tripe, we've even got DIY kangaroo chunks. We've got lamb and mint, we've got filled bones, we've got little fish, we've got big fish, we've got tripe chunks, we've got Atlantic cod chunks. You know what? We have some venison, we've got some chicken, we've got some more home baked treats. You guys might be thinking we're absolutely crazy and you could never do that. And you know what? The thing is, you can do whatever you want to do and you can add in whatever you want to do. And whether you use a shelf in your freezer or whether you use a little box in your freezer or whether you just go to a regular pet store, it doesn't really matter. What we're saying is, just like Tom said, variety is fun. Add the variety. What I don't do is I don't go, oh, do you want this? Oh, you don't want this. Oh, do you want that? Oh, you don't want that. What I do is I go, okay, we're going to play for a handful of this. So we're going to do a little handful of this. Oh, that's nice. How did you even know that I picked up something different? How are you so smart? All of them knew then. Did you see that? They were all like, oh, she has cheese and we like the high calorie cheese. So what I would, and that's just variety. So all of them have just appeared in the chance of there's some variety coming. And I love that. But what I wouldn't do is if they really don't want it, I wouldn't then go to something higher and higher and higher and higher, because you just end up in this sort of like raising it trumps, top trumps sort of deal.
And on that, I'd be we wouldn't switch the food, we'd probably switch the experience.
Strategy.
And what we see often is that people give up way too easily, right? And you might just be like 2 seconds before a breakthrough and you're like, oh no, my dog's rejected me, I don't like this. And it doesn't feel good for, you to turn up with your cool reinforcement strategy and your experience and your dog goes, what are you doing, right? And it feels really punishing and you got that disappointment effect. But sometimes it's actually, okay, I'm going to try harder. And all of a sudden your dog's like, hold on a second, maybe they really are into this game. Maybe I should be into this game. And so I guess don't keep switching the food, keep switching the experience, find the experiences that work, and getting a feel for when, absolutely abandon and say, you know what, my dog's not feeling it.
But when you abandon, don't then go to something else foodie. Actually just say, we are done here and we'll try again tomorrow.
Yeah.
And just like Tom said, no, don't keep switching the food, but on a new experience or a new session, yes, do. Mm-hmm. So when I come out, I might try this, and then I might try this on the next day, and then I might try something else. Because here's the cool thing with food. There are no rules. Our food world is getting better and better. No longer do we say stick to one kibble and one pack. We actually say, you know what, try some home bake, try some fresh veg, try some fresh foods, try some, even if you just change 20% or 10% of your dog's food on a weekly basis for something fresh and different and unique, as long as your dog doesn't have dietary intolerances or vet issues that you're currently working on with a specialist. For me, this is a good space to be with our dogs because we can be a little bit sort of fun, we can be a little bit experimental, and that's what allows, I think, Tom's and my dogs to live the lives they live, because we are always keeping that variety up. And therefore our dogs do look engaged. People ask us all the time, what treats are you using, Tom? What treats are you using, Lauren? And we say, whilst we could sort of tell you it's a certain brand or it's a certain thing, it's not. We use anything and everything, and whatever's at our fingertips, we get results with it. So
that was this episode of the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast. Go forth, experiment, observe, and implement. We will see you in the next episode. And remember, stay sexy.
Stop right there, game changer. We have something very exciting to tell you about if you struggle with stressful walks right now.
So pulling your dog, yanking your arm out of its socket, just basically it's painful, right?
Now, it's a struggle that you want to transform. You want to go from pulling on lead like a train to loose leash walking prince or princess, and we've got a solution for you.
It is just £27. It's a mini course that literally is going to be your zero to hero of loose leash walking.
Day by day, we're going to be showing you the games and skills and strategies that you are going to need to implement to transform your dog's leash behaviour in the next 2 weeks.
This is a complete package. You get to keep it for life, yes, for life, and it's just £27 to you.
Access it anywhere, keep it for life, no equipment required, and all you've got to do is go to absolutedogs.me/stop pulling, and yes, it is just £27, game changers.